Welcome back into the Daily Dose. I'm Jeff Hansen. As always, the show's brought to you by Give'emHellBrigham.com. Check us out, Give'emHellBrigham.com or GEHB.co. It's a freemium-style BYU newsletter. A couple of newsletters go out each week, hit your inbox that are completely free. All you got to do, give us your email address, and we'll send you those newsletters so you get a little bit more long-form BYU and just college football at a national level content. If you like what you see, you can subscribe to Give'emHellBrigham.com, and there's more VIP content, Discords, things like that. It's a lot of fun, so check us out, Give'emHellBrigham.com or GEHB.co. Thank you so much for tuning in, for people who just continue to come back each and every day. You guys are fantastic. This has been so much fun. Starting the Daily Dose, getting into the season, you guys are the best. Appreciate your support. Your algorithm fuel, your likes, your comments, your shares, things like that. You guys are fantastic. Thank you so much. Today is a big day for BYU recruiting. Cedar Valley edge rushers, DeVoe Tuataga. He'll announce his commitment a little bit later this morning. He's got a final top 5 of BYU, Utah, Oregon State, USC, and Tennessee. So he's got some big name offers. He also had offers from Oregon, from Washington. I mean, this kid can play. I like where BYU is at. I really do. We won't know anything until he officially announces, but I like where BYU is at for DeVoe Tuataga. And if BYU were to land Tuataga, that gives BYU a trio of really good pass rushers in Tuataga, Siosefa Brown, and Adney Reed. The class of 2024, yeah, they missed on guys like Cash Dillon, and that stung, but they'd have 3 really, really dynamic pass rushers who were wanted by Power 5 level schools and high-end Power 5 level schools. And then they'd still be in the mix for Kini Laufonohema out of Springville as well, who just pulled in an offer from Oregon State, got one from Utah a couple of weeks ago. This could be a really good pass rushing class for BYU, but it starts today. DeVoe Tuataga, that's got to go BYU's way. After Cash Dillon went to Utah, the margin for error on the edge rusher department became DeVoe Tuataga. BYU can't miss on him. This is an important announcement for BYU this morning, so keep your eyes on that coming out a little bit later today. I have been asked so many times this week, whether it be on YouTube or over on Cougar Sports Insider or anywhere else, what does BYU's offense have to do in order for me to feel comfortable going into Arkansas? And I don't think there's anything that BYU's offense can do against Southern Utah that I'm going to say, hey, week 1, total fluke, nothing to worry about, all is well. However, BYU's offense can go a long ways in helping squash the notion that everything is wrong, coaches need to be fired, guys need to be pulled, and the offense is completely inept. I mean, they could squash that narrative with a solid performance against Southern Utah this Saturday. We're not going to know how good this team is until they play Arkansas, until they play a team who's at their level, right? They've played Sam Houston, who's a brand new FBS school, and they're now going to play Southern Utah, who is an FCS school. Even if BYU scores 100 points, you're looking at that and you're saying, well, it was FCS Southern Utah. So BYU can do some stuff to maybe quell some narratives that are forming about their offense, but we're not going to know who they are till after Arkansas. But what can they do to stop those narratives and to maybe control the conversation, I guess, a little bit more going into Arkansas week? Well, I've got 5 or 6 different metrics that I think I'm going to pay attention to, not metrics, just pure stats. But 5 or 6 things that I'm going to be watching for on Saturday that if BYU can hit these marks, I think we're done talking about the ineptitude of the offense. And now it's just, is the offense okay? Or are they really good? How do they do against good competition? Things like that. First and foremost, 40 points. 40 points kind of has to be that big sigh of relief number. And now there's lots of ways for BYU to score 40 points, right? If they only score 28 on offense, but they get a kickoff return for a touchdown and a defensive touchdown, sure, the box score is going to show 42 points. That doesn't feel great. I want to see the offense put up 40 points. I want to see multiple sustained drives en route to that 40 points. But that's kind of my metric there. BYU should be able to score 40 points on offense against an FCS school. Even a good FCS school, like I think Southern Utah is. They're well coached. Elaine Fitzgerald is fantastic down there. But 40 points, that's kind of where my head is at. If BYU's offense scores 40 points, okay, we take a big, deep breath, sigh of relief, and we gear up for Arkansas. I also want to see 4 or 5 chunk plays, right? Chunk plays of 20 or more yards. I don't care if those come by way of the passing game or the running game, but I want to see 4 or 5 total chunk plays in the game. Ideally, you see some of those through the air and some of those on the ground, but I don't really care. I won't be picky. Beggars can't be choosers, but I want to see BYU. I want to see them get that big play, that chunk play where they're showing that they can do this on offense, that they can score and score in a hurry. That was something we didn't see against Sam Houston at all. Chunk plays were nowhere to be found. Receivers weren't open downfield. And for the most part, running backs weren't able to find holes and get into the second level. I want to see chunk plays, 4 or 5 of them at least. I want to see Keaton Slovis have 240 passing yards. Is that elite? No, of course not. I would love for him to have 500 passing yards. That would be great. But if you see Keaton Slovis complete 65%, 70% of his passes, 240 yards, I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling like, okay, Slovis, week 1, kind of a fluke. We're okay. We'll see what he does against better competition. But I take a big, deep sigh of relief if Keaton Slovis puts up 240 yards at about a 65, maybe 70%, at a really efficient completion percentage. That's important to me. I want to see the offensive line give up less than 2 sacks. I think that's important. I think that's what BYU's offensive line does. They're very good in pass protection. Why is it less than 2? Well, because really I want to see BYU give up 1 sack or less. That's really the metric. But I have a hard time saying BYU can't give up any sacks because flukes can happen. So I'm giving them a 1 sack buffer. But yeah, I don't want to see more than 2 sacks. That should not happen with this offensive line. Speaking of the offensive line, I need to see them enable the rushing game for at least 180 rushing yards. If they can do that, then I feel like, okay, running backs are finding holes. The offensive line is kind of controlled or figured their problems out and is controlling the game a little bit more. Maybe they're a little bit more comfortable in their positions. If they're doing that, 180 rushing yards on top of Slovis's 240 passing yards, yeah, that's a well-rounded offensive attack. I'm feeling really, really good. And then finally, less than 5 offensive penalties. I think they had 7 penalties on offense. That was too much. They've got to get that number to 4 or less in my mind. That gives them a 1 penalty a quarter buffer. And there's different types of penalties, right? Like maybe they can survive a false start. So if you get to 5 or 6 false starts, that's not great, not good even, but you could survive that versus, 4 holding penalties that are just drive killers. So there's some nuance here, but in my head at a very high level, less than 5 penalties on the offensive side of the ball. That's not a super aggressive goal. That's just a goal. And I think if BYU can do that, then we're in good shape on offense there. So those are the things. That's kind of what I'm looking for. That would be a pretty dominant offensive performance if BYU could put all these things together. I won't come out of the Southern Utah game if BYU hits on all of these things. I won't come out of the Southern Utah game saying, hey, BYU is fixed, nothing to worry about. They're going to score 70 against Arkansas. That's not the objective anymore. But I would come out of the Southern Utah game and say, hey, you know what? BYU, all is not lost. Let's see who they are against Arkansas. But there's reasons to be confident. There's reasons to be concerned. But they would provide some reasons to be confident as well. And coming out of Sam Houston State, we don't have any of those. There are no reasons to be confident about this offense. It's all just about remaining optimistic that they could fix problems. So show us that the problems have been fixed, addressed in at least a little bit, and then give us some reasons to feel confident going into Fayetteville next weekend. Appreciate you guys tuning into the Daily Dose. That's kind of what I think. What do you guys think? What would make you feel okay about the offense coming out of this game on Saturday? Appreciate you guys tuning in. Until next time, give them hell.